Waiting for the light to shine through. So figure out what like make me satisfied. Hello, my early birds. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And yes, Marie, I know it's very sad. And you know, the weird thing is, I don't know what happened to my other one. I think it finally just gave up on life and just turned into ash. Because I put it in my bag and now it's gone. So, all right, early birds, everybody settle in. We've got a good 15 minutes before we get started. I'm going to log in on my laptop and give me a few minutes to do that, and I will punch in the chat feature, a list of supplies you need for tonight. It'll include the paint colors, brushes, all that good stuff, and a couple links where you can donate to the studio. So everybody just settle in, have a beverage. We'll get started in a little bit. Zoom. And I'm just going to make sure we are recording. That was like the universe telling me to make sure I'm recording. With that said, when we're all done tonight, I will, it takes some time to upload it, but I will take this recording and I will upload it to YouTube so you can access it later. So with that said, sometimes painting just doesn't work out on the schedule that you think it should work out on. Happens to me. Happens to all of us. If you're not in the right frame of mind, you start to get frustrated. If you feel like moving too fast and you get frustrated, take a breath, put your brushes down. It's not worth getting frustrated over, right? Put your stuff away, walk away. Know that you can pick it back up tomorrow on Crooked Door Studios YouTube channel. I try to post it there. I try to post on Facebook as soon as it's uploaded. So again, depends on I live in the country, depends on my internet, how long it takes to get that loaded up. But it's usually, I don't know, sometimes around noon tomorrow, sometimes it's tonight. At some point, I'll post it up. So supplies, apron. Make sure you have either an apron or a paint shirt. The paint that I'm using, and if you got paint from the studio, the paint you're using is Blick Student Acrylic. Acrylic paint is lovely because you can thin it with water, you can clean it up with water, but if you get it on your clothes, when it dries, it's a real bear to get out. So if you're someplace and you're like, oh, I don't want to get paint on my shirt, run real quick and flip your shirt inside out. I'll sometimes do that. So I get paint on the inside and then I can flip it back over later. Aprons are always lovely. If you have sleeves, roll those sleeves up. It's really easy when you're painting to rub a sleeve through your paint if you're not careful, okay? If you do get paint on your clothing and you notice it right away, head to the bathroom, rinse it out with some warm water real quick. If you catch it while it's wet, you should be able to take care of it. If you catch it later and it's already dried, Murphy's Oil Soap is your best friend. Okay, so apron, canvas. I'm gonna move my sign. Marie noticed I have a new sign. My sign died. I had a paper that and I don't even know where it went. It's gone. I think it must have blown out of my bag because it is completely gone. So I have a new sign. Oh well. Inspiration painting. We'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I always like to have an inspiration picture close because my brain messes with me. I think I know what a tree should look like, and my brain will sometimes mess with me. I often have to have a reference picture to know what a tree really does look like. Okay, I'm not one of those artists that can just pull stuff out of my brain. I have to have something to reference. Canvas. The canvas that I have tonight is a 16 by 20 stretched canvas. You're going to want to make sure, if you have a stretched canvas, make sure and paint your edges as you go. It's much easier to paint them as you go than it is to try to match them up later. Okay? So canvas. Brushes. Tonight I have a big brush. It's just my big oval wash brush. I'll use that for the background. I have my medium, filbert or flat, up to you, just some kind of a medium brush, and a pointy brush. I'm going to take those three and pop them in my water cup. I have a water cup that's halfway full of cold water. Cool or cold, never warm or hot. I'm gonna leave those brushes in there. Now I also have my fan brush. I'm not gonna put my fan brush in the water. I'm gonna talk for just a second about fan brushes. I know a lot of you are starting to amass your own supplies. I figure if this has happened to me, this has probably happened to you. I went to pull my fan brush out of my bag, and I must have put it away while it was wet. And when I pulled it out of my bag, the bristles were all like completely bent. And I thought, oh, I just killed my fan brush. It was a hot mess. Like I couldn't get it straightened back out. If that happens to you with your fan brush or any of your brushes, really, sometimes if they dry funny, they get pressed up against something, the shape will be all messed up. Soak them in warm or hot water for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. I just refill my water cup with a little warm or hot water, soak my brushes in there. Then I'm going to take it and lay it out and shape them back to the shape they should be, and then fold a paper towel in half to dry them while they're in that shape, and then leave them lay flat to dry. So my fan brush was a hot mess, but I got it back. It's not trash. I did get it back. So with that said about fan brush, when the bristles get wet, they get soft and malleable. I don't want that out of my fan brush. I want him to stay nice and stiff and bristly, so I'm not going to put him in my water cup. I'm going to leave him lay. He's the only brush that when I go to use him, I want him to be dry. Because if we get him wet and those bristles get soft, they get a little weak and bendy. They also, when those bristles are wet, they tend to chunk and turn into like fingers. And instead of getting that beautiful fan, you'll get polka dots when you try to use it. So my big, medium, little brush in my water cup, my fan brush is just laying down on my paper towel. Make sure you have some paper towels to dry your brushes off on. Let's talk about some other things. I have a toothbrush. I always keep a random toothbrush in my supplies. We're going to use this for stars tonight. If you don't have a toothbrush, don't worry. You can use a regular brush, but anytime you change out your toothbrush from the bathroom, right? We change them out. I don't know how often you're supposed to change them, but when you do, throw it in your art supplies. A toothbrush is always a good thing to have. So I have that. I have a sponge. I might play with this sponge in my moon, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. If you don't have a sponge, get a couple clean paper towels. You can crumple up a paper towel and get the same kind of effect. So don't worry if you don't have a sponge. And if you do have a sponge and your neighbor doesn't have a sponge, rip that puppy in half. You just need a little bit, right? So I've got that. I've got my toothbrush, my sponge. I always keep a paint pen in my supplies just in case. I talk about it every time. I am crap at signing my name with a brush, so I always keep a paint pen to be able to sign. One of the other things that I'm going to want tonight is an extra plate. You could use a dinner plate if you don't have an extra plate, but this is what I'm going to use to trace to get my moon. I want to make sure that moon is nice and round. So I have an extra plate for that. When we talk about paint, I need to get my paint out. I have not yet, so I'll have to take a minute to do that. You're going to make sure and have white, red. Your red, make sure it's bright red, not fire red, if you're using Blick student acrylic paint. Bright red leans more to the blue side. Fire red leans more to the orange side. We're going to use the red to mix with blue to get purple. If you try to mix a red with blue that has more orange undertone to it, you're going to get a poopy purple color. So you're going to make sure you have a red that's a little more blue and less orange. If you're not sure what you have, you might do a little test mix on your plate with a tiny bit of red and a tiny bit of blue to see, and add a little white to it to see if you can get a good shade of purple. I also have blue. I have my dark phthalo blue. I have phthalo green, right? That nice deep phthalo green. And then I have black. And then another color that I have, turquoise. If you don't have turquoise, no worries. You can mix blue, green, and white and get the same color. But Blick Student Acrylic already offers this already mixed up. So I thought, well, throw that in there because it's already pre-mixed. So that should be all the supplies that we need for tonight. So I'm going to ask for your grace for a few minutes so I can go get my paint out on my plate, and then we'll come back and get started. So give me 2 minutes. All right, fastest 2 minutes ever. I got my paint palette ready to roll. Okay, so it looks like that. It's probably a lot of turquoise. I probably didn't need that much turquoise, but that's okay. Didn't need that much red either. That's okay. So let's get started, shall we? Now, I know a couple of you have painted your canvas black already. No worries, right? If you have painted your canvas black, I'm going to have you just stay in a holding pattern until we get to the blue, okay? But for the rest of you that have a white canvas, I'm going to have you find your big brush. Let's talk real quick about how this is going to work. And my inspiration painting here. We're going to start with black at the top. We're going to transition into some blue. And then we're going to start to use blue and some white and try to get it nice and bright into that turquoise in that whole middle section. Back down into blue and then back down into black. It's a mirror image, right? What happens down here is happening up there. Then we're going to go ahead and once the whole background is covered, we're going to splatter some stars. Then we'll get that moon on there. We'll take a drying break. Then we'll get the moon on there. We'll get our mountains or hills, whatever you want to call them, back in there. And then we'll get some trees and some shrubbery. I watched Holy Grail the other day, sorry. Shrubbery. And then if you want to, we'll put a little kayaker on there, which I'll probably do because I'm a kayaker. So, but I think this painting's lovely without. So that's how that's going to work. Whenever I think about a painting, I always think furthest in the distance and then work my way forward. And that's the way I paint it. So sky and then stars and then moon is next, mountains, tree, shrubbery, kayaker. Okay. All right, big brush, squish it around in the water, dry it off on my paper towel because I don't want to thin that black paint down. And I'm going to do black down about 4 fingers-ish, about a 4-finger width. And we're going to go side to side. Okay, just black for now, side to side. I'm going to get up there and get that tippy top. If you're on a black canvas, just hold, okay? If your canvas is already black, just stay in a holding pattern with me. Now remember, as you go, it's easier to match your sides as you go than it is to try to match them up later. Yes, Lynn, you are speaking to my heart. Lynn suggested we put a Kraken in there. Oh, she's speaking straight to my heart. So again, black, about 4 fingers down-ish. Now, black is really tricky when you're using it in a large quantity like this, covering a section and making it all black. You're going to want to move that canvas. You see me picking it up and moving it back and forth. Black can be really tricky depending on how the light hits it. You will think you have it covered, and it won't be covered. So I'm moving it to make sure I got paint in all the little all the little speckles are covered, the canvas weave is covered. And I'm taking this opportunity to get that tippy top edge too. Get this side. Go down a little further, about 4 fingers. And this is the point of class that I always have to remind people to breathe. It's just paint. I was getting ready to reference Alicia, because I know she's on here. Breathe, Alicia, breathe. Painting should be relaxing, right? And if it's not, you need to stop for a minute and catch your breath. Okay, so my black is down about 4 fingers. Now I'm going to transition into blue. If you have a lot, you can't hear me? Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. If you have a lot of black paint on there, like I have a big chunk of black paint, I'm not going to clean my brush out because I want to be able to blend, but I don't want the black to be overpowering. So I'm going to take my brush and just wipe, just like on my paper towel, just to get rid of those black chunks. So I still have black on my brush, but no big chunks. Now, anytime you take paint, always go in the edge. So I'm going to take a chunk of blue right there in the edge. And when we blend, we're going to start in the new section. I'm going to go up into the section I just painted, blend a little, and back down. Start in the new, go up. Now, if your canvas is black, this is where I'm going to have you dig in with me, okay? So if your canvas is black, you're going to pick up just blue paint, and you're going to paint up and get it to fade away up into the black. The beauty of Blick acrylic paint, the student paint, is it's very transparent, so you should be able to get it to fade right up into that black. I'm down about 4 fingers, okay? So start your blue just below that. Go up into the black, back down into the new. Get your edges. Now our goal is to go about halfway. Our horizon line is about halfway, maybe a tiny bit lower. So I want the brightest part of my painting right about halfway. So I'm going to go a little further down with blue, and I'm going to start to add white, knowing that by the time I get about halfway, that's going to be my bright, bright turquoise. So to get to that bright turquoise, I got to start getting a little lighter. So blue, I'm going to take a little bit of white to start, not a lot, because I want that transition to be smooth. And I'm going to start in the new section, go up in the old, back down in the new. Up in the old, back down in the new. If you're not seeing blue, if your canvas is still really way too dark, wipe your brush off. Orsina family, there's a rumor that we can hear you. I can't hear you. You're muted on my end. Super weird, huh? Lynn, if you could elaborate on that, that would be lovely. Weird, huh? Okay. But everybody can hear me, right? Okay. Okay, cool. All right. I know Zoom does weird things sometimes. Ah, gotcha. All good. Zoom is weird. I always check. I try to always check in. I'm taking blue and some more white. I'm trying to get it nice and bright so I can transition into that turquoise. I try to always check in with people to make sure you can hear me, because I taught a class before. I talked for a firm 15 minutes and finally looked over and people were like, because they couldn't hear me. My phone had somehow muted itself. So I'm gonna check in on occasion. Okay. So I'm starting to get a nice bright blue. Always working up a little and back down. Up a little and back down. Right now I'm just blue and white. When you feel fancy, when you're ready, venture into that turquoise. Now, if you don't have turquoise, it's going to be blue, phthalo green, and white. But I do have turquoise, so I'm going to take a little bit of that, tiny bit of white. Start in my new section. Go up into my old section, back down into my new section. That's how we blend. Let me show you that again. If you're having trouble blending, let me show you. I have turquoise, a little bit of white. I'm going to start in this new section with my new color. And if I stop there, I have this line. It goes from blue to turquoise. So I'm going to go up into the blue, into that old section, picking up a little bit of that blue, coming back down into the turquoise. If my blend isn't enough, I'm going to do it again. Turquoise, take it up into the blue, bring the blue down into the turquoise. That'll help me get a lovely blend between those two colors, and I won't have real hard lines. Okay. So again, my goal is to get nice bright turquoise right here in the middle. Turquoise, a little more white. Edges, don't forget your edges. Okay, Alicia, I'm gonna need you to sing American Pie. If you can hear somebody else singing American Pie, I'm gonna need you to let me know. Are you singing, Alicia? Can anybody hear American Pie? No? Okay, I think we're good. That's assuming Alicia sang. Okay, so I've made it about halfway. Now what I'm gonna do is work in reverse, okay? So I'm gonna stay with that real bright turquoise. And then as I head down, remember that blue's real powerful. I'm gonna head into blue, using white, keeping it bright. And then I'm gonna transition that last little bit, maybe 3-4 fingers at the bottom, that'll be black. If you have a black canvas, when you get down there, you're gonna do exactly what we did at the top. You're gonna stop with blue without white and just see if you can get it to fade on down into your black, okay? Okay. So I've got my turquoise and white. And I know this is my horizon line right about halfway, maybe a little lower. I'm not going to add blue yet because that blue is so powerful. It'll take over if I'm not careful. And everything I'm doing is side to side. This is super important now, especially in the water. The sky, you could have been a little swishy if you want, but the thing that makes it look like water when you paint it is keeping your brush strokes parallel to the bottom. If you start doing funny things with your brush in the bottom in the water, it's going to have a hard time looking like water. It's going to look real choppy and things are going to look kind of weird. We want it to be a nice calm night on the lake, so you're going to want to keep your brush stroke parallel to the bottom, side to side for water. Oh, edges, don't forget your edges. Easier to do them now than it is to match them later. And I always say that, I always say paint your edges. You don't have to if you don't want to, but the stretched canvases are lovely because if you do paint your edges, then you don't have to worry about a frame. You can just set it up, you're done. You don't have to bother with it after that. So I'm gonna get over here and paint this other. Oh, so bad at painting my edges. So bad. See, and because I forgot, I'm gonna have to try to match that up. Oh, bummer. Okay, so I have a nice bright turquoise. I'm gonna, to blend, I'm gonna use the color I have been using, turquoise and white. And then I'm gonna add blue. Now that blue's powerful. So I'm gonna start with just a little bit. Because he'll take, I know phthalo blue and phthalo green are powerful. He'll take over real fast if I'm not careful. So I'm gonna start in the new section, go up into the old, back down into the new. Let's do that again. Start in the new section, up into the old where it's still wet, and back down. Getting that blend. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to finish out my last four fingers with black. I'm going to take that blue down a little further. Now it's going to transition to black a lot easier if you go to straight blue with no white. So I'm going to get in just some straight blue. My new section, up into my old, down into my new. This is one of those paintings. These colors make me so happy. I don't even care whatever else we do, right? Just the colors make me happy. We could stop here and I'd be content. Okay. So now I'm going to move into black. If you have your black canvas, your goal is to just get that blue to fade. If you can't get it to fade to black, you can take a little bit of black like we are. Okay. I really want just the littlest bit of black down there. If I'm not careful, that black it'll creep up and up and up. My edges. Yeah, the further up I go, the further I'm taking that black with me. There we go. Okay, so it's 7:37. How about 7:45? I'm going to check in with everyone. That'll give you a good 8 minutes to finish that background. Make sure you got all your edges. For the next step, your canvas doesn't have to be dry. For the next step, you're going to want clean water, toothbrush or whatever brush you're gonna sprinkle stars with, and a little bit of clean white paint. Something I have not talked about is glitter. I know some of you love the glitters. If you're gonna put glitter in your stars, you're gonna want your background dry, right? Because you don't want your glitter to stick in a big old chunk of wet paint. So for the rest of us, I'm not gonna glitter tonight. For the rest of us, our canvas can still be wet for the next step. If you're gonna glitter, you're gonna wanna go to the blow dryer. So 7:45, I will check back in. You need your canvas completely covered, clean water, clean star brush, mine's a toothbrush, clean white paint. Okay. I'm gonna pick my canvas up, I think, and hang it here so I can get that bottom edge. I think I'm just gonna hold it. And then when I'm done painting the bottom edge, then I can hang it back up and let it dry. Okay. All righty, 7:45, we'll come back together. I am going to step away for a minute and go rinse my water and my brushes out. The reason we need clean water for the next step is to splatter stars on there. Get this straight. To splatter stars on there. The paint that we're using, the Blick Student Acrylic paint, is a little too thick to come off the brush and splatter, so we have to thin it down with a little bit of water. If my water's dirty, that's going to change the color of my stars, okay? So I'm going to step away and go get clean water, rinse everything out, and make sure I have just a tiny little bit of clean white paint for the next step. Okay, so 7:45, we're going to put stars on there, so about 4 minutes. And then we'll need to take a nice drying break, because our next step after that is to put the moon on there, and I'm going to want to trace. So I'm going to have to make sure my canvas is completely dry. So if you're panicking, I know some of you paint at a different pace than some of us, right? Which is fine. Don't panic though, because we're going to put stars on at 7:45 and then have a nice 15-minute drying break. Okay, and we'll come back and work on the moon at 8 o'clock. Sound like a plan? Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Marie. Ooh, Marie, what you got? What you drinking? Ooh, where'd you find it? Meyer? Yeah, yeah. Oh, happy as a little clam. So I don't drink that much, and I don't really keep alcohol in my house. But there's a wine that I absolutely love. It's a sweet red wine with spices and stuff, and they only have it at Halloween time. But Meyer has been stocking it year round. I think because I'm the one that keeps buying it. So they're like, somebody's buying it, so they just keep stocking it. I think it's me. I'm the only one that's buying it. But I got so sad a couple weeks ago because about a month ago, I bought the last bottle on the shelf. There wasn't any more, and then it was gone. Exactly, Lynn, Witch's Brew, right? Okay, so hold that thought. We'll talk about Witch's Brew here in a second. So I bought the last bottle that was on the shelf, and one of my girlfriends was like, oh, I couldn't find any Witch's Brew. They were out. And I was like, tee, I got the last bottle. And then I went the next week thinking they would restock it, and they hadn't. And I thought, well, that was karma, right? I was teeing because I got the last bottle. I took it from myself, though. They didn't have it anymore. No worries, though. It is restocked. I stocked up. So, Witch's Brew, Leelanau Winery in Michigan is where that comes from. If you follow their Facebook page, they are releasing pumpkin spice wine, which I love all things pumpkin spice, but I'm not sure how I feel about that. But they're also releasing for the holiday. Halloween is my holiday, by the way. They're also releasing for the holiday apple spice wine. So I'm kind of excited about that. So if any of y'all see those out on the shelves anyplace, let me know. All right, one more minute and we'll talk about stars, and then we'll take a nice long drying break. Marie's typing. What are you typing, Marie? Yes, you are. I love it. People are private messaging me, telling me their ideas or what they're going to do in their painting. Lynn, I'm kind of excited to see if you put a Kraken in there. I love Halloween so much, I've stopped putting my Halloween decorations away. I just leave them out year round. Does that make me weird or eccentric? I'm dirt poor, so I think that makes me weird. If I had money, I'd be eccentric, right? Okay, it is 7:45. Even if your background isn't done, exactly, Lynn. Passionate is what that makes me. So even if you're not done with your background, stop for just a second and watch how we're going to do this. I'm going to use my toothbrush to sprinkle my stars on there. Watch me through the process, because then you might want to go outside. You might want to step away, because when I load this toothbrush up, I'm going to pull my finger across the bristles. And when I pull my finger this way, the paint's going to splatter back that way. Okay? I've seen people at the studio, it makes me giggle. I'm not laughing though, maybe a little. I've seen people do this, and when they do that, they're pushing the bristles away and paint is flying back this way. So they'll come to me at the studio and go, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm not getting any stars. And they have splatter all over their face, and it makes my heart happy. And then I show them the right way to do it. So we're going to do it like this, right? I'm going to point my brush there, and I'm going to pull my finger across it toward me so the bristles fly back that way. Now, with that said, it's really easy when we do this. We think the paint is going right at the canvas, right? Not necessarily. Sometimes it flies straight up. Sometimes it takes a detour. So you may want to step outside, okay? So watch me through this, and then you can decide where you need to go for your stars. So I'm going to start out in my clean water cup, okay? I'm going to move that toothbrush around in there. This is why we got clean water, because if there's mess in my water, it's going to change the color of my stars. Now I'm going to go tap, tap, tap. I'm going to leave a little bit of water in the toothbrush. I'm going to take a nice chunk of clean white paint, and I'm going to go over here to a clean spot on my plate and scrub, scrub, scrub. I'm using the little bit of water in that toothbrush to thin that paint down a little bit. Get those chunks out of there. Okay. Now, when you splatter, set your canvas as vertical as you can, because you don't want a drip off the end of your brush running down your painting, because that sucks when that happens. If it does happen, though, you might call it a shooting star. You might take a damp paper towel and blot it real quick. You might decide that it's going to be hidden behind the moon or the mountains. Okay. I'm going to concentrate my stars in the darkest part of the sky up here. See a couple down into the blue. And then I want to get, it's a reflection, so I want to get some down in here in the water too. Okay. And just like that, I'm going to call it done, I think. Pop my brush in my water cup, go wash up. 8 o'clock, I will check back in with you, okay? Ooh, if you're gonna glitter your stars, lay that painting flat, sprinkle just a little bit of glitter on there, just like we would at the studio. Tinkle the back of it, the back of the canvas, to move that glitter around, and then flip it upside down and flick the back of that canvas to knock the excess glitter off into the trash or the yard or wherever you are. Okay, so 8 o'clock, I will check back in. And I think in the meantime, I'm going to go to the blow dryer because my background is still pretty wet. We're going to want a dry canvas for the next step. Okay, so you do you. I'll be back. Ooh, let me say real quick, I was just looking at the inspiration painting. There are a couple really intentional stars on there. If you look real close, there are like 3 or 4 really intentional stars. I'm gonna wait to put those on. I'm gonna wait and decide if I want them. I can always put those on at the very end based on where my moon winds up, where all my trees, where everything else winds up. I can decide later if I'm gonna put those on there, okay? Okay, 10 minutes, 8 o'clock, I'll be back. I think at this point of the painting, I always like to stop and figure out which is top and which is bottom at this point. I know I painted it this way, but I'm going to take the opportunity to flip it and see, does that make me happier? No, no, I think it belongs that way. But you do the same thing, right? Flip it around and see if maybe your up is down and your down is up now. You never know. Okay, my clock says 7:53. At 8 o'clock, we're going to move on to the next step. For the next step, you're going to want some clean white paint for your moon. You're going to want something to trace for a moon. So you might want to check your dinner plates, see if you want a dessert plate moon or if you want a nice big platter moon. Up to you. I'm actually looking at my stove, my burner covers. Ooh, I might trace my burner cover. It's a little bigger than my plate. So anyway, 8 o'clock, we will move on. Dry canvas, something round to trace, clean white paint. It just occurred to me while I was in the other room that if you had stepped away and you hadn't heard me say I'd be back at 8 o'clock, you would come back around and be like, huh, where'd she go? I feel like I need one of those signs that you have. I think maybe the studio, I think that's the closed sign on the studio. Will return at, and it's the face of a clock. So every time we're on a drying break or we're getting ready for the next step, I feel like I should set it up here, and it would say I would move it to 8 o'clock so you would know. Anyway, oh yes, thoughts, so many thoughts. So 8 o'clock we'll move on. It's about 4 minutes. You need a dry canvas, something to trace for round for your moon, and some clean white paint. That's what I need to do, Susie, right? Susie held up a plate that said, "Be right back." I should probably do that. I need a little "be right back" sign. I kind of like the idea of adding a time to it too, so I don't have to say it a million times. I'm sure you guys get tired of me saying it. 8 o'clock, don't forget, 8 o'clock. Oh, gone painting, that's cute, instead of fishing. That's pretty good. So thank you so much for everyone that helped me choose the paintings. If you didn't see it, I found, I don't even know how many there were, seven or eight random inspiration pictures, and then shared them out on Crooked Door Studio Facebook and had people vote. That's how this was chosen. I'm so glad this one was chosen because this was top on my list. But I have the paintings chosen for the next couple weeks through the month of August. So that was incredibly helpful. I think we'll do that again for September. So if you have ideas for things you might want to start painting in September, send them to me and I will compile them in a folder, and then we can vote on them near the end of August. That was a lot of fun, and it took a lot of stress off of me trying to figure out what everybody wants to paint, because I'll paint anything. But if I've learned anything by doing this, it's that I don't always have a real good handle on what other people want to paint. Because I was ready to move into pumpkins, and nobody else is ready to move into pumpkins yet. So y'all helped slow me down, slow my August roll a little bit. Okay, this is your 1 minute warning. 1 minute. Make sure your canvas is dry because we're going to put our round on there. Oh, welcome, Tisma. We're going to put our round on there to trace, and you don't want it to stick and mess up your background, right? So my canvas is nice and dry. Okay. My clock just chimed 8, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Now it looks to me, if we look at the inspiration painting, it looks to me like the moon is right in the middle of the canvas. Might be a little higher, but the horizon line does not cut the moon in half. The horizon line is down a little bit. If it cut the moon in half, the horizon would be up here, right? But it's not, it's down here a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out, I think, oh, hello from the Philippines. We've gone worldwide, ladies and gentlemen. We have the Philippines joining us tonight. Welcome, I'm so excited you're here to paint with us. So I think I'm gonna put the moon really close to middle, knowing that then I'm gonna move my horizon line down a little bit, I think. You know what, let me do something real quick. Let me fold this in half. If I fold it in half, oh, nothing lines up then. No, the moon is a little above half. The horizon line is a little below half. Anyway, we're gonna wing it, okay? All right, so I'm gonna use my paper plate, I think. And I think I'm gonna move it up a little bit from half. Now I'm gonna take my medium filbert brush. I'm gonna use my filbert instead of a pointy brush. If I use a pointy brush, the bristles are longer and they're a little harder for me to control. So I'm going to use my filbert and I'm going to use him skinny ways, okay? So I'm going to have to step in front so I can get this centered because that is not my strong suit, getting things in the middle. Go. There's halfway. There's halfway. And a little above halfway. Okay. I'm going to end up pushing this over. There we go. Okay. Tiny, tiny bit of white paint. Just a little. I'm going to trace right around there. This is one of those things, if you're really unsure where you want your moon to go, you can trace it with just a wet brush first. You can use a pencil if you want. I'm not always a huge fan of that because if you put your pencil line on there and you don't like where it's at, it's a bear to get rid of. There we go. Ta-da! Okay, now stay with me for just a second. Let me show you what I'm going to do. The outside edge of the moon, about an inch or so in, it's nice and thick and solid, right? But then it kind of gets, this is where we're going to use the sponge or a crumpled up paper towel so we can see that color through. We can see our sky color through. Okay, I'm not going to lay that color on top. I want to be really stingy with my white so I can see the color, the sky color through the moon. So if I just take my brush and I just go around, I'm going to get this really hard white line around the edge of my moon. I'm going to use that filbert brush and I'm going to lay it flat. Let me get real close so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to get it right on that line. And I'm going to go around. And as I go around, it's going to start to get, ooh, what's the word I'm looking for? Faded. I'm going to start to run out of paint on my brush. And I'm going to be able to fade it and get a little dry brushy the closer I get to the middle. Okay, so nice and solid right there at the edge. And then keep going back and forth, back and forth. And as I get closer to the middle, I start to run out of paint. That will keep me from having a really hard, solid line all the way around. So I'm going to go all the way around it that way, turning it to make it easier for me. And it's lovely because our canvas is dry, right? I can rest my hand right on it. Get nice and solid there at the edge. Almost kind of like scribbling, right? Can you hear it? Okay, let's do that all the way around. About 2 fingers-ish. 2 finger width all the way around-ish. I just keep turning my canvas, doing the same thing, right? Setting it down on that line. Now, once we've gone all the way around, you can transition to a sponge if you want. Once we've got that 2 fingers of thickness all the way around, you can transition to a sponge, or you can put on your, what's the opposite of OCD? Your random whimsy hat, and you can just start to go and make some little darker scribble places, but you have to stay super duper random. You can't be OCD about it at all. Okay, get a little brighter spot right in there, a little brighter spot right in there. If that's not your cup of tea, transition to a sponge or a crumpled up paper towel. A little bit of white. I'm actually going to tap it off on my hand because I can see on my hand. If I tap it on my paper towel, I can't see how much paint I still have on my sponge because my paper towel is white. So I'm going to tap it off on my hand. If you're really unsure about this, you can scribble, you can tap, 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 but you want it to be thicker and lighter and thicker and lighter, like the surface of the moon. Don't completely get rid of that color back there, right? You still want to be able to see little spots of color. If you're really unsure about this, remember we said the horizon line is a little below halfway. So if the halfway point of my moon is here, my horizon line is going to be, I don't know, about an inch below that. Start your color right in through there, because we know that's going to be covered up with mountains and trees and all kinds of stuff. So if you're unsure and you want to practice your technique, start right along where your horizon line is going to be. Okay. Just want to stay nice and irregular. Lighter, darker, tiny, tiny bits of paint. You can always add more, but once you have a ton of paint on there and you've gotten rid of all your background color, you can't go back from that. So I cannot stress this enough. Tiny, tiny, tiny bits of paint. You can always add more, but once you have too much, it's too late. Ooh, got kind of a straight line there. I need to break that up. This is one of those things too, when you look at it up close, it kind of looks like a mess. Kind of looks like we're making a hot mess of the moon. But if you get away from it, or if you take a picture of it on your phone and look at the picture, like I was looking at it and I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that. But I turn around to look at you and I can see it in the background. I'm like, ooh, that looks pretty good. I have kind of a hard line right here I need to fix. But your phone will, if you take a picture of it on your phone will pump up the contrast on it a little bit, and you'll see it differently than you would if you were looking straight at it. So keep that in mind. If you're not sure, you're like, ooh, I don't know how this is happening, I don't know what's going on. Take a picture of it and look at the picture, and you'll see it differently. I'm feeling like I might need to stop before I get rid of all my color completely. I'll have this line up here. And I want a couple nice bright spots, right? Ooh, I like that. That's lovely. I'm so excited we have the Philippines on here tonight. What time is it for you? If you can pop that in the comments. I'm just curious. And I'm curious if you're just watching or are you painting with us? Oh, and I should mention that since we do have some newbies on here tonight, there will come a point that I will call this painting done. When we call it done, you'll have exactly 1 hour to send me to private message Crooked Door Studio on Facebook and send me a picture. I love to see a picture of you. Oh my goodness, same time but morning. So you're 8 o'clock in the morning right now. Oh my gosh. So you're halfway around the world from us, right? So I will give you exactly 1 hour. So for example, if we call this one done at 9:15, you'll have until 10:15 to send me a selfie of you with your painting. And then everything I have at the end of that hour, I will collect those pictures, put them into a little collage, and put it out on social media, out on Facebook social media. Because if we were at the studio, we would have a group picture. But because we're on our own, we don't have that opportunity. So that's our substitute for a group picture. So how about how are we doing on that moon? Do we need more time? We need more time. I'm seeing heads nodding. We need more time. Okay. So how about 5 minutes? How does that feel? 5 minutes, and we'll get ready, and we'll put our mountains and our horizon, and we'll start to build out from there. So it's about 8:15. So 8:20, we'll move on, and that'll give our moon a little time to dry too. So let's talk a little bit about if you did accidentally get rid of all your color back in there, you can take a little bit of that turquoise, a little bit of that blue on your sponge or your brush or whatever, your paper towel, whatever it is you're using. Remember, just tiny, tiny bits of paint, and very irregularly put a little bit of those background colors back on your moon. And remember, if you're unsure, you're like, ooh, I don't know, think about where your horizon line is going to be, a little lower than halfway on the moon, and start right there, knowing that it'll be covered up when we put our mountains on there, okay? And 5 minutes, so 8:20, we'll move on. We're going to put the mountains on next. So if you want to start mixing a purplish paint, if you're unsure how to make purple, do a little bit of mixing with your blue and your red, and make sure that you're going to get a nice purple color and not a poo color. Okay. Oh, I love that you guys are painting even though you're across the planet from one another. I love that. I had friends when we first started doing this, a friend in Guatemala, and she was there with her boyfriend, and then her sister was here, but they were all painting together from Guatemala and then Central Ohio. So, makes my heart happy. Okay, I'm going to go rinse this out, 4 minutes, and we'll move on. If you want to start mixing a little red and a little blue, hello, Anita. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. If you want to mix a little red and a little blue to get your purple, you could start working on that. And we will move on in 3 minutes. I just saw your comment, Anita. I'm recording. Oh, the purple is for the mountains. Our mountains in the background, right along that horizon line. So you're going to want it to be pretty dark purple. Okay. Yeah, it was funny, Anita, since you weren't here right at the beginning. Whenever I start Zoom, it automatically records, so then I have it to be able to share later. But I've been trying to pause it so I don't have to cut out that 15 or 20 minutes of no class, right? Because it's me getting ready, it's me waiting for people to log on. So I paused it. Well, then I got started with class, and I accidentally bumped my tripod that holds my phone, and it was like the universe reminding me to hit record again because I hadn't. So the universe was looking out for us tonight. All right, 2 more minutes. So I'm going to start to play while we're taking another minute to finish up that moon. I'm going to start to play in my blue and red down here. If you have, okay, so if you have purple on your palette already, that's lovely. If you have purple out of a tube, or you pre-purchased it that way, that's lovely. I don't normally offer purple. The paint that I have at the studio is the Blick Student Acrylic. The purple, for whatever reason, is really, really weak. It's really transparent. For a painting like, which is fine if you're trying to get just a little dash of purple in a sky, maybe. But for this painting, I want these mountains to be real dark, deep purple. There is no way I could use that Blick purple paint and get the purple I needed. So that's why if you got supplies from me, that's why you got red and blue, is so we can mix. If you have your own paint, you didn't get paint from me, you're going to want to do a little mix on your plate to make sure that your red is the right red and it's not an orangey red, because you don't want a poop color. If you have an orangey red and you're trying to mix it with blue, you're going to get a really nasty color. Okay, so that is so dark. It's really hard for me to see what's going on. I'm going to take a tiny bit of white. Oh, that's pretty. The minute I mix that tiny bit of white in there, I can see what I'm dealing with. So red, blue, tiny bit of white helps me see it's the right shade of purple that I want. A little more red. But I want to keep it nice and dark, okay? That tiny bit of red is just so I can try to figure out the right purple that I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm using my, my medium filbert brush. I'm going to start with a line straight across. We know this is not my forte, doing straight lines, so I'm going to get over in front of my canvas. Okay, you could find something to measure a straight line if you wanted. Find yourself a straight edge. I'm gonna wing it, but I'm gonna get a line across there that's, ooh, I don't know, maybe quarter, half inch wide. A little lower than halfway on my moon. And this is gonna be a challenge for me because my brush strokes in the background travel down to the right. So here we go. Ooh, that was hard. Did anybody breathe? Are you guys breathing? You're gonna breathe. Every painting has that pivotal moment. It's the Bob Ross moment, if you will. We'll have this gorgeous painting, and then he'll just like take a palette knife with some black paint and just throw a tree on top of everything. And you're like, no! Every painting has that pivotal moment, and this was it, right? I have a gorgeous moon and a gorgeous background. Now I want you to just draw a purple line clear across the whole thing. But we did it. That's what matters. Okay. So now my highest mountain, if I split this top half of the moon, if I split the top half of the moon in half, that highest mountain doesn't go higher than halfway on the top half of that moon. I just said a lot of halves, right? So if I find halfway on the top part of the moon, that tallest mountain doesn't go any higher than that. So there's that one. I have another shorter one here. And a couple shorter ones down there. I have one here and one here. Oh, I went down in my water. I'm gonna have to make that a little thicker. Okay. So you'll notice what I did. I tried to keep them pointy. I've seen this happen in class before. People want to do bumps, and then inevitably it winds up looking like boobs all the way across. Not what I'm going for tonight. I want to try to keep them a little pointier, a little more mountain-ish, and a little less round dome-like, and get them different heights, and get your peaks different widths apart. Okay. And then I'm going to fill them in with that purple, nice and dark to start with. I'm going to have to take this down a little lower because my my mountain came down a little far. That's okay. Okay, nice and dark to start with. I'll get little highlights on there in a minute, but for now, I just want them to be nice and dark. So you may feel like they're all growing together right now. That's okay. We can separate those in a minute with some highlights. Let's just get them purple for now. When we add a tiny bit of white here in a minute, that'll help separate them a little bit. And the trees are going to be in front of them. We're going to have shrubbery. We're going to have other shrubbery. We're going to have other things happening. So I'm not too concerned, but a couple little highlights will be magical. Alicia, I'm checking in, just making sure you're breathing. I'll never forget one of the early classes when you told me I had to remind you to breathe. I remember that. You gotta breathe, sister. I really enjoy, he can do his own thing, Alicia. He does. I can't believe he stayed with us this long. I need him to go his own way and do his own thing. You go, sir. Um, I forget. Oh, I do like Zoom classes. I really enjoy this, being able to paint from home and knowing that you all are home and safe. But that's something that I completely miss. If we were all in the studio together and we started something new, I would hear y'all go, or I would hear you just get really quiet. Everybody would hold their breath. So I could remind you to take a breath and breathe. I don't have that. I don't have that luxury here with the Zoom classes. I can't hear you not breathing. Okay. So I've got my mountains across there. I still have a little bit of purple on my brush. I'm going to take a tiny bit of white while those mountains are still wet. And I'm going to come down along the left side of these mountains here in the middle. Oh, that is too much white. Too much. Abort plan. Abort. I'm going to blend that in. That's why I'm doing this while it's wet. And that helps me pull that mountain and pull this one in front of that one, just down that left side. This one, I think I'm going to do the right side. You have to think about where your light source is. So this one would be on the right side. And this one would be on the left side. There we go. Little highlights, little bits. So think about where your light source is. For this one, our light source is right in the middle. So if I have my mountains to the right, the light source would be on the left side of them. And my mountains to the left, the light source would be on the right side of them. Think about your light radiating out from the middle and what it's going to hit. This one right here in the middle is kind of up in the air, it's kind of negotiable. Could have probably gone either way. I just made an executive decision and put it down the left side. Okay. So I'm going to pop my brush in my water cup. Take a few more minutes and let you get through those mountains, because we're going to move on to trees next. Trees and shrubbery. So it's 8:31. How about 8:35? We'll put some trees on there. You know, as I look at this inspiration picture, it occurred to me there is no reflection for the hills, the mountains. Maybe they're set back further that you can't see a reflection. I'm not going to let it bother me. I'm going to follow right along. But that is odd. I feel like there should be some purple down here in the water to reflect those mountains. Oh, I love it. She saw that. She saw that immediately, Jessica. You know, I didn't even see it until just now. I'm like, man, those mountains are just kind of floating. Well, now that we've said it, I feel like I feel like I kind of have to put a little purple down in the water. If you're going to do that though, remember what I said, everything is side to side. I'm gonna start with the tiniest little bit of purple with that smaller brush. That make me feel better? I think that makes me feel better. I'm not gonna put a lot, but I feel like it needs a little bit of purple in the water to set it down. Those mountains are just kind of floating there. There we go. That feels better. I have the tiniest bit of purple and I'm just dry brushing it like we dry brushed the moon. Tiny bit of purple. Using that filbert brush skinny ways. That purple is going to go a little further down, just a little further down where you have your bigger mountain. But I don't want to cover up a lot of my moon down in the water, so I'm going to stop. But that little bit makes me feel better. Good job, Kelly, Jessica. Well done, ladies. Better. Okay, another minute, and we'll start talking about trees. Just looking at it, where the trees are going to go. 3 on this side, 2 on that side. Nothing in the middle, right? The middle is open to that moon. That's what leads your eye back in, right? So I'm not going to put a big tree right in the middle of the moon. I'm going to keep them to the left and keep them to the right. And remember, whatever you do above, you got to do below. Okay? Each one of these trees has a matching shadow, so or a reflection. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do my trees above the horizon first, and then I'm going to flip my painting upside down and do the reflection trees. Okay. So if you have not done a tree with a fan brush before, let's talk a little bit about it. I'm going to have you watch me through the process. So I have my fan brush nice and dry. Okay. And I love, fan brushes are all different. This is the fan brushes that I absolutely love. If you've gotten them from the studio, they're equivalent to this. They're kind of coarse. The more coarse your fan brush is, the less likely it is to be real flimsy and to be chunky and turn into like funny fingers and polka dots. That's why I really like a coarse fan brush. Okay, so I'm going to start with my tree right here at the edge of the moon. It looks like it's maybe as high as the tallest mountain peak, maybe a little taller. It's all about perspective, right? So those trees are closer, and they come and they sit right down on our horizon line there. So I'm going to start with my pointy brush. I'm going to paint these trees in black first, and then add little bits of green and white for highlights. Because the trees are dark, the shrubbery in front of them is a little lighter. So I'm going to start pretty dark. So pointy brush with some black. And I said maybe as tall as that mountain, maybe a little taller. Put my backbone in there. And then I'm going to go to my fan brush. Fan brush is dry. And I'm going to load it up with black paint. Load it up. That's going to help hold the bristles together too. You have to leave that tippy top. That's where you put the star on the Christmas tree, right? So you have to leave that tippy top. You have to come down a little bit and give a teeny little tap. I'm going to get really close. I'm going to come down a little bit from that top and give a teeny little tap. Doop. Come down and give another little tap. As I come down, I'm just going to start tap, tap, tapping back and forth. Now these trees are really tall and really skinny. And I'm going to stop right there at my horizon line. Okay. They're not at the bottom. They're maybe as wide as 2 fingers. That's about it. They're real skinny. Okay. Let's do another one. Pointy brush. This is one of those things, people love trees or they hate them. There are people that curse me every time I put trees, put a painting up with trees on it. Okay, this one wants to be a little shorter. Whoop, got a little curvy. And this one might even be a little shorter. You put their backbones in there. And then fan brush, load it up. Get nice and close here. Come down from the top, give a tiny little doop, doop. This one, move it back over here. Okay, give a tiny little tap. For these, for the most part, I'm just using the corner of my fan brush because these are so tiny. These trees are. There we go. Now remember, what happens above happens below. So backbone that matches, zoop. A little taller, zoop. Shorter, zoop. And I'm using, when I get to the reflections, I'm using half as much paint, half as many taps, because it's a reflection. I want it to be a little wispy, a little watery. You can see it's not as full as the one on the top. Ooh, Alicia, I just had to remind myself to breathe. Do one more here, this little guy. So I can flip it back up. There we go. So I have the ones at the top that are nice and heavy and strong, a lot of paint. The ones down here, half as much paint, right? Half as many taps to make that reflection a little wispier, okay? So I have those 3. I'm working in just black right now. I'm gonna head over to this other side and I'm gonna put a couple over there. And then I'm gonna get a little bit of green, a little bit of white on my brush and do some little taps over top of those, okay? But let's get all those base trees on there first. I just had a nervous moment. My phone, for whatever reason, it got dark, and I thought, oh God, I'm gonna run out of battery right in the middle of a class. That would not be good. But no, I'm all plugged in and everything. And I'm at 100%. Who knows? Who knows why? It's like when you're at a restaurant and 6 p.m. hits, like the dinner hour hits, and all the lights in the restaurant turn down. That's how you know it's the change from lunch to dinner. That's what just happened on my phone. Who knows? Oh, the world is weird. I think that's something the pandemic's done for us, right? We've just started rolling with stuff. We're just like, that's weird, and we move on. Very few things surprise us anymore. Okay, so I've got 3 on this side. I'm going to put 2 over here. Again, I'm just working in black first. Get my reflections in there. Half as much paint, kind of wispy. Okay. Now, once my black trees are done in silhouette, once those are done, I have black paint left on my brush. I'm not going to put it in the water and clean it out. I'm just going to wipe it off on my paper towel. If I spend a lot of time with my fan brush in the water, it'll get too soft. I'm not going to pop it in the water till I'm done with it. If you did pop it in the water, no worries. Take it back out of your water, dry it really good, fold the paper towel over it. I'm just folding the paper towel and cleaning the black paint out of it. But I don't want to put it in my water cup because I don't want it to get soft and flimsy. But you can see there's still black paint in there. I've just wiped the majority of it off. I'll wash it when we're all done. So we put highlight on our mountains. We need to do the same kind of thing with our trees, with some green and maybe just a tiny, tiny bit of white. But the real bright spot is going to come in this shrubbery down front. Okay. So I still want to keep my trees pretty dark. So with that fan brush, I'm going to start with just a little green and think about hitting every other branch. Not every branch, every other branch. There, there, some there, there. It's so hard to see, but it is so subtle. If I get close, I think you can see. Okay. Every other branch, because this really is just silhouette, right? They're going to stay pretty dark. And what you do above, you need to do below. So I'm going to get just a couple tiny little taps of green down in the water. Just a couple tiny little taps. Not even going to take the time to flip my painting right side up or upside down to do that. Okay. I don't even think I'm going to put any white in that green. I use just green. I feel pretty good about it. I think I'm going to save the white, the green and the white, for the shrubs down in front of those trees. But I do need to go over here to this side and get a little bit of green on these trees. we go. Trees. Guys, we're getting there. I'm looking at the inspiration painting and I realized we are pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. I'm going to get some shrubs on there. And then kayaker in the water, which you don't have to do if you don't want to do. But don't leave us. If you decide you're not going to do anything in the water, you need to let this dry a little bit. And we need to get a little bit of white, like the watermarks, those little white side-to-side brush strokes. That will help it look like water. So whether you do a kayaker or not, you got to make sure and get those little white brush strokes on there. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start working on some shrubbery. I'm going to use my fan brush to do that. But instead of using my fan brush this way, like I used it for my trees, I'm going to turn and use it this way. I'm going to use it skinny ways. And I'm just going to set it down. So I'm going to use, I think, a little bit of black and a little bit of green because I want to start dark. So a little bit of black, a little bit of green. And I'm going to use that fan brush up and down, and I'm just going to set it down. Now let me do this, and then I'll show you. Let me get some light on it, and you'll be able to see really what I'm doing once I add a little bit of white. So I added a tiny, tiny bit of white to my fan brush. It's going to be too much. I know it. There we go. Once it starts to fade a little. All right, I'm just setting that brush down. Just on the tips, just on the top edges of those weeds. I feel like that white is too much. I'm going to go back and soften it with a little bit of green. I don't want it to look like it's snowing. And I've turned my fan brush sideways. I'm doing just a little shimmy underneath. For a little reflection in the water. Just a tiny little shimmy right up underneath those shrubberies. I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side. Dark first, then light. You have to have that nice dark base before you have your highlights on there. But without those little highlights, it's really hard to see your shrubbery at all. And then I'm doing just a little sideways shoosh, 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 right underneath. Okay. So how about let's take a few minutes and finish up those trees. I'm gonna go, or the trees and the shrubs. I am gonna take this opportunity and go wash my fan brush out because I'm gonna use that to do my watermarks. And then at that point, once we get those, the lines of like the ripples in the water, once we get that done, you can call it done or you can start to freeform. At that point, I'll start working on my little kayaker because he's going to take a hot second. Okay. So how about 3 minutes? I'm going to go rinse my fan brush out. I'm going to come back and put little white marks on there randomly. and then we can call it, we'll call this painting done at 9 o'clock, but then I'm going to stay on and I'm going to work on my little kayaker. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go rinse out. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay. So I've got my fan brush nice and clean. We kept paint in that fan brush for a long time without rinsing them out. So if you're finding that you have residual paint left in there, like up on my bristles, you can see I've got some leftover paint way up in there high. I like to clean my brushes in Murphy's oil soap. I'm sure you've heard me say it before, Murphy's oil soap is an artist's best friend. It really is. So if you have some brushes that need to be cleaned, some brushes they get, if you use them a lot, you get paint like stuck up in the bezel a little bit. Take your paint cup and put just like an inch of Murphy's oil soap in it, just enough to cover the bristles. And then leave your brushes soak in that overnight. You don't want, this is really important, you don't want so much Murphy's oil soap that it goes all the way up here and covers the whole bezel. Overnight, if you leave them soak, Murphy's oil soap will break down the glue that holds that metal to your brush. So you want just enough, because this is a press fitting. I'm not worried about this. You want just enough Murphy's oil soap to cover the bristles. Leave them soak overnight and then rinse them out in warm running water the next day. And the old dried paint comes right out of them. Okay, so I have, whether you're ready or not, stay with me for just a second. I have my clean fan brush. I'm going to use it skinny ways with a tiny bit of white paint. I want to go, it's my husband sneaking in. Hi, honey. Everybody say hi, Doc. Oh, what do you got? Benny's salads, guys. He brought home Benny's salads. I know, Emily. Aren't you jealous? What kind of Benny salads? Does it matter, first of all? Exactly. What kind? Exactly. He doesn't even know what kind. They're pretty. Pretty salad? Pretty salad. People are saying hi, Doc.
Hello, everyone. Eggs. It's egg salad.
He's a mess. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. I have my fan brush. I'm going to use it skinny ways. The thing that's going to make this look like water, you're going to have to go over top of your trees just a little bit. So let's use this fan brush with a tiny, tiny bit of white paint. And so we know it's a tiny bit. I'm going to wipe it off on my hand. Don't use it this way. Use it skinny ways. I always get nervous. I'm afraid I keep checking because I'm so afraid my trees are still wet because I don't want to drag through that black paint. That's why I'm going very cautiously. And stay parallel to the bottom. But you gotta get some little white marks on there. That will help us know that it's water. You break those trees up a little. Okay. It's nice too if you can get a little white right up at the top of your water where your horizon line is. Almost looks like the water is coming in to meet the horizon line. Try to get a little bit up there. Oh, that's fun. That's good stuff. This is one of those things that you could really easily overdo, right? So I think I'm gonna stop so I don't overdo it. I can add more in later, but I'm gonna pop that brush in my water cup for now. So now, remember I said earlier, we need to decide if we need a couple accentuated stars up there. There are a couple up there, right? There's maybe one or two over here. If you decide that's something you want to do, the easiest way to do it is to take your little brush and use the other end of it. I'm going to take a little bit of white paint on the plastic or the metal end. And I feel like I want one right up here. So I'm going to set it down. I'm going to pull down, go back to the middle, pull up, pull right, and pull left. And there we go. That is the easiest way to get a little star that just fades off. I feel like he needs a little buddy right here now. Down, up, right, left. There we go. Done. I'm an odd girl, so I feel like I need 3. I feel like I need one over here now. Maybe way up high. Whoop. Maybe way up high. Down, up, right, left. Okay. So at this point, we could call that done. I'm going to put a kayaker in mine, but if you want to call it done, you can call it done. Don't forget to sign your painting. Artists usually sign in the bottom left or the bottom right. If you don't want to sign on the front, you could sign on the edge of your stretched canvas, or you can sign on the back. If you sign on the back with a Sharpie or a paint pen, never ever here, always here. You don't want it to bleed through to the front, okay? There's that. And we're going to call this painting done at 9 o'clock. So you have until 10 o'clock to private message Crooked Door Studio. Send me a picture of you. I love to see you with your paintings. It can be just your painting, but I love to see your faces with the paintings. So I'm going to stay on and work on my kayaker here. Got my pointy brush. Okay. Right there in the edge of the, right in the edge of the moon. Okay. So it's this little kayak or canoer. I'm not sure if he's a kayaker or a canoer. But I'm going to draw the little bottom there, little bottom part of the boat. Oh, a simple raft. Ponder that. A simple raft. Does your simple raft have a sail? Or is it like a Huck Finn Tom Sawyer raft? It would be a really flat, gosh, what's the, oh, cute. So I think it would look like this. It would be, what is this shape? Help me out. Parallelogram? Keep it really, really skinny, a skinny parallelogram, right? Because then it would go this way, and then this way, because then you'd have your cat. Little ear, and then your dog. Ears. Something like that. Is that what we're thinking? Maybe? Oh, cat needs a tail. Zerp. Dog needs a tail too now. Zerp. Yeah, I think if you were going to do a raft, it would need to be a parallelogram, right? A really skinny parallelogram. I got you. I got you, boo. Okay, so my kayaker. Okay, so here's his boat. Needs a little body. A little body in a boat, little head, little round head. And then paddle, right? It's all in silhouette. I'm not going to get too concerned about it. You do have to remember, though, whatever you choose to do in your water, we need to have a reflection, right? And if this were me, which it is, right, because I'm a kayaker, I would have a hat on. Even at night, doesn't matter, because I've been out there all day. I would have a hat. Because I'm a ginger, right? I wear a hat anytime I'm outside. There we go. Okay, so whatever you choose to do here, we have to give it a reflection. Always has to stay. It's in the water, right? So side to side. Side to side. So I have my little brush with a little bit of black. Little side to side brush strokes on there. There we go. Okay. My little kayaker looks silly. It makes me happy. Kind of chubby. Looks like me in the boat. Okay. All right. I think with that, I'm going to call it done. I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to unmute yourself if you'd like. I'm going to stop the recording here. Oh, just kicked it. Let's see.